Sparing you the background story of Occam's razor, because I'm not so much a story guy, rather, I'm a raw concept guy. And I do believe that we can logically and even spiritually observe and analyze ideas separated from the stories from which they came, right? An idea has a life of its own, and it's either true or false, depending on whether it coheres with the rest of what's true. Uh, so, in the case of Occam's razor, anyway, it's the principle in philosophy that often the best explanation is the simplest. And the upside to this is that if you use a simple explanation for things, that virtually anyone can understand what it is that you're trying to convey. But is that true? It depends on what you mean by best explanation, and it depends on whether that simple explanation, in fact, is misleading the listener. Because it's so simple, someone with a different mind, different life experiences, different reference points for understanding things might take that simple explanation to mean something very different than you intended. So how do we deal with that, right? So the problem with Occam's razor that I see is that it doesn't account for the broader, more high-level categories of truth, approaching those of higher reason and even spiritual truth. It might be okay for explaining mere facts, as science tends to. Science isn't really in the business of explaining things, but rather it's in the business of gathering facts from the ground up and hoping that they'll coherently come together to create something of higher meaning at some point that can be replicated, tested, shown to be true empirically, right? But if we want higher level truth, what you have to do is not think of, well, what's the simplest way I can explain this so anybody can understand it or be misled, but rather, what's the simplest explanation that accounts for the broadest range of facts, truths, categories that we can conceive.